All right, I think the attendees are trickling in. We have a bunch of folks. We have a recent seller on the Baton platform that's in here. Um, I won't give them away, but that's pretty cool to see. Maybe they're thinking about starting another business already. So probably a glutton for punishment. Um, great. Okay, we have a bunch of folks trickling in, so we'll start in a few. Um, Pat, how's the summer in Milwaukee?
Telling you, it's great. Milwaukee's weather is terrible half the year, but it's so good in the summer, it's worth it. We do a big thing here in July called Summerfest. It's right on Lake Michigan. And in the middle of the summer, like middle of July, it's like 74 degrees. It's just unbelievable. Today it's 60 something, there's no humidity, awesome golf weather. And then the rest of the year, terrible, awful. But if
You
you
got a
know, you
couple
know
good months.
Milwaukee is awesome, man.
New York is horrible in July and August
Is
for
it
sure. Yeah.
hot, humid?
Yeah, it's really hot, really humid.
Hmm.
Um, Not too fun to be out. Okay, awesome. We have 43 people here, including a couple AI note takers, which I think probably comfortable with, knowing what I do about Pat. So we'll kind of get started and kick it off. I'll just give a really quick introduction on myself, kick it over to Pat. Then I have a quick story I want to tell that I think relates to a lot of the content that Pat's going to share and maybe even underscores how important that is. And then we'll switch it off to Pat for a long presentation and hopefully answer a lot of questions that come up as well. So really quick, my name's Dylan. I'm one of the co-founders of Baton. Baton is a marketplace for buying and selling small businesses. One of the key differences with us is one, every small business sale for us starts with a free valuation, right? So in that valuation, not only are we looking at your financials, but we're also understanding kind of qualitative factors about your business and how that's going to relate to the sale. And we'll make recommendations on maybe some things that you might want to improve to increase that valuation if you're not happy with that number. If you are happy with that number, then we work with you hand in hand. We have about five expert M&A advisors that will guide you through the process of selling your company. And then we will sell the business. And now we're selling about 2 to 3 businesses every single week across a lot of different industries and a lot of different geographies. But it's awesome work overall. Before this, I was the VP at a company that sold to Aramark, which is a big Fortune 500 food service company. Sold that business in 2019. Got to stay on at Aramark as a VP, which is a great experience. And then started Baton to help small business owners preserve their legacies. So excited to be here. I think Pat, you have an awesome story, and we're in for a treat. Pat had, what you said, 25 years in broadcast and journalism, and has spent the last decade supporting small business owners in a bunch of different ways. Um, but Pat, I'll kick it to you just to share anything that I missed, and
Yeah,
then maybe you could share a story.
I appreciate that. It's great to be here. So thanks for having me and welcome to everyone to the webinar. My past was in broadcasting and then I started consulting small businesses. And how did I get into AI? I kind of got obsessed with it because I saw the opportunity when Claude Cowork came out. So what I'm going to teach you today is from the perspective of a small business owner, not some AI trainer that flew in from Silicon Valley, because people that know what it's like to run a business can help other people that are trying to run a business. So, what I'm going to teach you in a minute is all about how to unlock value, get back your time, feel like your hair isn't on fire. As you can see, it's already happened to me. And I'm going to give you some time and productivity back in your day. So, I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. So when Pat and I started kind of collabing on what this would look like, and Baton started talking about the importance of this, I felt like for me, I'm one of the co-founders, but I still take a handful of deals. And I actually just had a deal fall apart in the late stages for I think what we're going to talk about pretty directly. So essentially, what happened there was this amazing company doing about $1 million in revenue. We went under contract with two strong buyers who had bought companies before for about $4.8 million. So a pretty good multiple. The seller's really excited. The buyers are really excited. Everything's looking good. And then after you go under contract, Kind of the sale process starts with you list the business, you field offers, and then hopefully you have multiple offers and you kind of negotiate and select the best one, right? And that's what we work with sellers to do. So we did that, and then you're under contract and you're under LOI. Usually, by and large, 95% of the time, that offer or going under LOI involves being exclusive with a buyer. So we were exclusive with these buyers, two buyers in this one group, and we started working with them. And in that period, they're securing financing and they're doing diligence on the company. So they're trying to understand, all right, we're excited about this opportunity and we're committed to buy this, but we want to know what it looks like when we're operating this day to day. And they also need to go raise money from investors, right, Pat? Which is like a common thing that these buyers will need to do when they're under contract.
For sure.
So these buyers start spending a lot of time diving into the company, spending time in person with the owner. And what they started to get really nervous about were two things. One is they saw how integral the owner was to the business. So they were starting to feel like, wow, everything really revolves around the seller, around the former business owner. And I think it got scary for them starting to think about how are we going to handle the operations of the company without the owner? Right? So that was maybe a fear that was put into them. And then the other piece, they started to get concerned about the systems that were in place. There wasn't a formal CRM, right? There was no way to manage the customers. It wasn't clear all of the different operational processes that went on in this business. I'm not going to share too much about the industry, just out of respect for confidentiality for the seller. But it's a pretty unique thing. But anyways, there are all these complex operational processes, and the seller was really involved. So initially, the buyers came to us and said, "Look, we're still really excited about this business, but we don't think it's worth $4.8 million anymore. We think it's worth about 4.2, and we don't feel comfortable paying all of this money up front now because we're a little nervous about how we're going to hold on and operate the business." So we talked about it with the seller and a trusted advisor, and the seller said, "Okay, I still want to sell to these folks, and honestly, what they're saying makes sense, and I agree." And the seller was awesome to work with, and so are the buyers. So we aligned on new terms, re-signed an LOI, and I'm thinking, okay, now we're in a good spot. And every deal dies three times before it actually gets done. Uh, and then the buyers continue to dig in and they really start to get worried. And they didn't want to move everything down there. They were kind of trying to be a bit more hands off and spend some time, install somebody new. And ultimately, they decided that it just didn't make sense to go through with the acquisition. And what that is they figured the owner was, again, too integral to the business and that the systems and the operation and the technology wasn't in a good enough spot to justify a sale of the company. And instead, maybe if they thought there was still some value, they would have tried to retrade again, but they figured it would just be too big of a headache, and they decided to back out of the deal. Now I started talking to some other buyers that we had involved, and I gave them some of the information, not all of the information, right? We're still trying to pump up the sellers. That's what we do. And the other offers were coming in much, much lower.
Mm,
One of those unfortunate situations. Luckily, the seller, we had a great experience. We have a great relationship. They're working hard on these things and hope to come back and sell for even more than what we were looking at before. But they're getting older, so I think they're excited or looking forward to the day where they can hand the keys over or pass the baton, as we
sure.
like to say. So, anyways, I wanted to tee that story up because I think it's relevant to what Pat's going to talk through today and kind of why I think, Pat, this is such a great connection. So I'll hand it over I'll again pass the baton to you, and I will take questions and things in the chat and jump in.
Well, I
So,
really appreciate
by the way, one person just said in the chat, that is exactly what happened to me last year.
it.
So, a common experience.
Well, I hate to hear that to you, Sharon, but thank you for using the Q&A and letting us know. And Dylan, thanks for the opportunity. And Rachel, working hard behind the scenes, shout out, thanks for organizing all of this. Now, we get to have a conversation today. And the conversation is about how technology can change your business. And you've heard it 1,000 times. AI is going to save you all this time. But conveniently, a lot of those people that say that don't show you the receipts. How about we start the webinar with showing you my receipts? I use Claude Cowork. I'm absolutely obsessed. saving 21 hours every single week using Claude Cowork on my desktop. This is how you start closing the gap in your business. What you're seeing here is how I do it. I write a weekly newsletter, does that for me. I do a daily podcast. It does all of my show prep. It posts it, tags it, writes all the content for YouTube. All of my Apple podcasts, Spotify podcasts does that. Does a morning report, email drafting, messes with my community, helps me think about stuff. I could go on and on and on. And look at all the stuff it connects to. My Gmail, my Slack, Canva, Beehive for my newsletter, Todoist, Google Calendar, Go High Level, which is my CRM, Claude and Chrome for anything else it misses, QuickBooks, my social media site for my community. It connects to everything. And when it starts connecting to everything and you start thinking about how do I run a better business powered by AI, that's when things can get really exciting and literally saving you hours in your week. So today, I want to give you a quick overview of the basics of Claude Cowork. I want to give you 5 things you can do at the end of this webinar to get moving faster. But I also want to get you daydreaming because sometimes people will say what it can do, but they don't show you some of the things that it'll do. So I want to show you some of the cool things, or things that I think are cool at least, that I've built that are really working for me. Because I find that when I train people on Claude Cowork, here's what happens. They go from what's a Claude Cowork to, oh, I'm competent at Claude Cowork, to I wonder if it could do this. And they get really curious. And once they start getting curious, that's where the magic happens. So while we're having this conversation, please use the Q&A. I want your questions, comments, and sarcastic remarks. That's how this is a two-way conversation. And I know Dylan's going to hop in when he's got something to share or ping me on as well. So please use the chat and let's make this a lot of fun. This is the mental unlock that helps business owners go from I'm freaked out about AI to I'm using AI. When you look at Claude Cowork or Chat or Gemini or whatever it is, we tend to feel this weight and this guilt. Here is this super intelligence that if I was just smart enough to unlock, I could get the results of that guy on the webinar or someone else. Because we're thinking about it as this super smart piece of technology. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not a tech guy. So when I was trying to learn AI, it was really intimidating. Everyone else can figure out how to do this. How come I can't? But the reframe, especially for business owners, is really simple, and it will make people go, oh, okay. Don't think about AI and Claude Cowork specifically like a piece of technology. Think about it as a junior employee. A junior employee, you've had those, promising, resourceful, ready to do anything you want, but they don't know much on their first day. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you do. They don't have keys to the break room. You haven't given them access to email yet. You haven't shown them what a good job looks like. They're just kind of there and they're promising. But when you think about AI like a junior employee, Claude Cowork specifically, oh, okay. That means it's going to take a little bit to get the results that I want out of it. But when I show it how to do stuff, it's going to start taking things off my plate. And oh, then it might be smarter than I am at some things. And whoa, now the things are moving forward faster. And I'm actually getting work done that I don't have to do. That's all this is. Claude Cowork as your junior employee. And why Claude Cowork? Why not ChatGPT? Why not Gemini? I believe in Claude Cowork, 1, because it's crushing it for me, but 2, it does some stuff that not all AI tools do. For those of you like me that have been AI curious for a while, let's go back to 2023 when ChatGPT burst onto the screen. You mean there's a computer program that I can talk with and it will give me anything that I want to know? That's what it was. It was a chatbot. But a chatbot by itself is like a genius locked in a phone booth. You can go in the phone booth, hey, what about the thing? And it will tell you. But then you have to take that information, copy it, and paste it someplace to do some work. Go in the phone booth, okay, thanks, appreciate it. Then you have to go to the email and do something with it. So it helps you, but it's not connected. Claude Cowork, this is the difference. It is connected. Instead of being a genius in a phone booth, it's an agent standing at your desk with a clipboard. It's working right next to you, and it can see your email. It can see your files. It can see your documents and your apps. and it can do work on your behalf. And this distinction is everything. Because when your AI tool can read your emails and your docs, it can open your QuickBooks and your Canva, it can look at your calendar and your CRM. Then you get to start handing off chunks of work. And you can enable significant business insights because it can read your entire intelligence like that. And it can start drawing conclusions about things that you didn't realize or stuff that you missed. So today's training is a mix of inspiration and specific examples of how you can get connected. So let's start with that connection, shall we? I'm going to share my screen. We're going to look at Claude Cowork together. And again, I see some questions coming in and I will field them as quickly as I can. So the first thing you do to go from it's a chatbot to a connector, you open Claude Cowork. Now we're looking at the desktop version available on Windows and Mac. Download it. I'm not talking about Claude.ai in your browser. Download the tool. When you do, you're going to click your name in the bottom left corner. You're going to go to settings and you're going to go to connectors. And when you get to your connectors, you'll click add, browse connectors. You can search for all of these major pieces of software. And connecting it is as simple as, okay, great, I've got Google Drive. You click it, you log in through Google, boom. Now Claude has access to your Google Drive. And you'll see here all the stuff that I have connected. And I just closed it. Look at all this. Stripe, Beehive, Canva, Descript, Gmail, GoDaddy, Granola, everything that I use, almost everything that I use is connected. Once it's connected, it can start reading all of the content inside those pieces of software. For example, I can tell it, I could put in here, like I could click this box right here and say, Rachel, who did a great job setting up this webinar, look at all the times that Rachel and I emailed back and forth. And is there anything Rachel asked for that I haven't put into today's presentation? Here's the link to my presentation. It'll go read all of Rachel's emails. It'll read my presentation and make sure I didn't miss anything. I actually did that this morning just to make sure I didn't screw it up. But that's an example of how once it's connected, things can start getting crazy. When it's connected, then you can start asking it to do things that really pay off, like this. This is a morning board. This morning triage board has changed the way that I do my work. What this is it pulls in all of my tasks down the left-hand side. It pulls in all my emails down the right-hand side. And it gives me my morning, the weather, what my meetings are today, and of course, the Chicago Bears news, because Bears, got to be a Bears fan. Anyway, I can go right here on this one board and say, send the June invoices. I click the go button and I say, I want to see what the invoices are before you send them to me. Can you write a list and put it into my to-do list? And then I can go and tell it what I want it to do with this task and this task and this task. And then I can go down this side and I can say, okay, Jennifer wants to know, there's Jennifer's email. Tell Jennifer I said XYZ. And I do all of this stuff in this one place. And then I click this button and send to Claude. This is where it starts to feel like a personal assistant with a clipboard, because I'm just dictating to it. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And then I send it to Claude and it gets after it. That's the power of being connected to the software, because once you're connected, it's a junior employee.
Pat, this is awesome. I'm taking some inspiration myself. I'd love, and I think there's some questions coming in around this,
Sure.
but I'd love to just talk about the idea of connecting these different pieces of software, right?
Sure.
Somebody asked, what about privacy? Somebody else said, Claude can connect to these programs in your computer, but Gemini doesn't, and trying to understand that. So I'm curious how you think about that. And then also, what are some of the first pieces of software that you start connecting, and where have you really seen that power come from?
The powerful ones are your documents, so OneDrive or Google Drive, and your email, Outlook or Gmail, and your calendar, however you run your calendar. And then I also recommend however you keep your to-dos. So I use Todoist. I'm a Todoist truther, but however you keep your week, when those four things are connected, it can see where you're supposed to be, who you're communicating with, all of your intelligence, all the docs that you use, and then your day and what needs to get done. That's really the core four things you want it to connect to. Daryl asked a great question about privacy. This is a risk. There is no doubt. And there are some of you on this call that you should not connect your Claude to things that are HIPAA related or privilege related. You're an attorney, might not want to do that. I've also helped out folks that are financial advisors. So I've got Dylan's financial advisor or financial statement. I don't want to just say Dylan has this much and in these things, but what they do is they strip out all the identifiable information. Client A, and this is their portfolio. What should I do with it? But again, all of those things are ruled by their independent industries, compliance and best practices. And I think you would know if you're in one of those industries about what the rules might be. Brett asked a question. If you have QuickBooks Online connected, I would assume that you share your bank statements and it would reconcile. It does look into QuickBooks, and I am currently uploading bank statements for it to reconcile. It comes with some pre-built skills inside, and I'll talk about skills here in a minute about how it works. But yes, it has that kind of intelligence. And then Craig is asking on the Claude connections, you can control the detail of connections and what Claude is allowed to do. Absolutely right. So Craig, high five. Thank you for mentioning that. When you connect it to something, you get to give it levels of permission. Either it can do something, or it needs to ask you if it can do something, or it can never do something. So you could connect Claude to your QuickBooks and say, you can never create an invoice, or you can never do this other certain thing. That's also something that you can do. Okay. Dylan, I just answered like 6 questions in a row. What else do you want to know?
Those were great. I think maybe for other folks who are using OpenAI or Gemini or some other AI system, um, maybe just a quick defense and a little bit more detail on why pick Claude.
Yeah, for sure. So I came into the Claude universe. I was a ChatGPT truther. I was doing presentations on ChatGPT back in 2023 when it came out. I switched to Claude when Claude's Cowork came out because Cowork was the first over-the-counter connector like this that got a hold of all of these pieces of software for me, and I haven't looked back. Now, Chat has Chat, I think they call it Cowork, that has a lot of these capabilities as well. But here's what I want to say. There are people on the planet that train Gemini and Chat, and I'm sure they're fantastic pieces of software. And I'm not even saying Claude is better than all of those, but I don't want to get outside of my lane and tell you what Chat can do and what Gemini can't do because I don't know. So while I love to train AI, my lane is Claude, and I can show you what to do with Claude. And I know that the other tools, including Grok's new bot and some other tools, Hermes, and some of the other agents out there, either have caught up or they're at the same level as Cowork. But I don't want to get outside my lane as far as saying what one software can do and what they can't do if I'm not an expert.
And I think that's totally right, Pat, in my experience as well as all of these different AI tools, especially over time, will become more powerful and will have feature parity, which just means that they're all probably at the end of the day going to be able to do the same thing. And I think the important thing for folks who are at the start of this journey is to pick whichever one you feel comfortable with and go really deep and become an expert. And I think all of the things that Pat is going to share today on how to set these systems up to be powerful will
Mhm.
still be relevant for you, even if you are using Microsoft Copilot, with Jessica asked about, or Gemini or OpenAI.
For sure. And that first thing I mentioned about junior employee would be applicable to whatever piece of software that you're using. So thank you for all the questions. Keep them coming, and we'll work them in as we go. So I shared with you how you get everything connected. And then I shared with you the morning board, how it's changing how I start my day. When things are connected, then you can start building really unique things to solve problems. One of the members of my Claude Mastermind, they are an advisor that helps people with inventory management. So they're a consultant that helps you unlock trapped cash inside your inventory. Well, he created, using Claude, an unlock your trapped cash calculator where a potential client tells you how much inventory they have, what their turnover are, and all the specs that you would need. And he can put in the calculator to show the value of what he can do when you hire him, which is significantly higher than what he charges. And he's out there using that as a lead magnet. So you can work with Claude about what's important about your business and then build the tools necessary to help business come to you. So one of the first questions that people ask is, okay, well, how does Claude get so smart about my business? This is where CoWorks connectivity works for you. Once I connected it to my Drive and my email and my websites and my video transcripts, I actually asked it, hey, you're connected to everything that I have. Let's build an understanding of the business. And I had it build a thing that I called Pat Miller OS. How do I make my money? Who are my clients? What are their similarities? Where am I growing? Where am I shrinking? Where's the opportunity? And it pulled together the most amazing report on what I do and how it's done. I turn that into a skill, and I'll show you a skill in a second. So anytime I need to create something new, it begins instantly with everything about my business, which goes to another pain point that we all have. How many times have you asked your AI assistant to write and it sounds nothing like you? It's like, I wouldn't say that, or M dashes, or it's not X, it's Y, and you just want to punch it in the face. It's happened to all of us. So back to Claude again. I asked it to create a ghostwriter. And the way that I did it is it was connected to my hard drive. So I said, I want you to look at the transcripts of the live show that I do. And it ingested 200,000 words from my live show to learn my patterns, my habits, how I make points, how I speak. And it then wrote a command of how I talk. We call it Ghostwriter. So now whenever I need to write something, I just say, hey, load the Ghostwriter skill and write Dylan a thank you note or whatever it might be. And it can do that on my behalf. So these are just some examples of what's possible. Now, if you're not a Claude expert, I want to give you some of the basics so we can unlock some of these benefits for you. So we're looking at the Claude desktop app right now. There are three rooms. Oh, go ahead,
Pat,
Dylan.
can I jump in and ask a question? And I think it's
Please.
relevant. I see one question. Do you recommend adding a brand reference document so it starts integrating your voice into the work? So this is
Yep.
definitely something people are thinking about. You're using some words, and maybe you'll get into this, like OS, which is operating system, or
Mhm.
skill. Um,
Yep.
and maybe we could just talk like, what is that? Like, is it fair to say that it's almost like a Word document on your computer? It might be saved in a different type of file format, but aren't these things just text at the end of the day?
Yeah. A skill is a text command that teaches Claude how to do something. So when you go into Claude, and I'll explain skills here. Okay. Let's say I teach it, I say to it, I want your help writing my weekly email. And it drafts the email. And you say, no, in the weekly email, I want to include this, not this. And it drafts it again. Okay, that's close, but I want it this way, that not this way. And it drafts it again. You go, whoa, wait, that's perfect. Do that again every single time I say, write my newsletter. That's called a skill. The magic words, if you're a Claude user, open the skill creator skill and turn this conversation into a skill. And it will create the newsletter skill. And the reason why that's important is that newsletter skill, and I'll show you one here, turns out to be a command that Claude can read about exactly what a what the instructions are to perform that skill again. So I have my Fridays off newsletter. I write a monthly edition. Here's all the instructions for Claude about how to write that newsletter. So that's exactly what you're saying. It's this document that Claude reads before it acts on my behalf, which goes back to the junior employee idea. Okay, junior employee, write the newsletter. Here are the rules to write the newsletter. So every time it writes the newsletter, it's exactly the same way every time. And to the second part of your question, you said business OS. What is that? Well, that's the skill that I created. I had it look into everything about my business. And I said, this is great. You know everything about my business. Turn this conversation into a skill that I named business OS. So that way, whenever I have a conversation and I want it to know everything about my business, I have it load this business OS skill so it knows everything about what I'm doing. Does that answer your question about what a skill is and how it works?
Great for me.
Awesome. Okay. Now that we're in here, let's continue with skills. And then I'll show you a few other things here. The magic of skills is that skills will give you the stuff the same way every time, and they can be scheduled. This is where things get really exciting. So let's say I made this skill this morning, and this comes from a real story. I had an email come to me this week and it said, Pat, this is from my financial advisor. Hey, Pat, I need you to fill out this form. It's crucial because your 401k made a big change. This is required. Click this link to do it. I'm like, whoa, that looks weird. He doesn't normally email me. I call him and it was not an email from him. Turns out the link was a bad link. So I thought, okay, how can we avoid this in the future? Hey, Claude, I want you to create a skill where every morning at 4 a.m., you'll go into my email and see all the links that are in my email box and evaluate them as best you can to see if they're spoofed links or if they actually go where they say they're going to go. It's a piece of technology that I'll never have to worry about again. And they'll get through. I'm sure some will slip through, but it's a safeguard that I can have. So it went from here's a need to training it to what I want to then scheduling it. And when you start scheduling things, man, at the end of the day, do this. At the beginning of the day, do this. Before every meeting, write a dossier about who I'm meeting with. Someone says no to a proposal in an email. I want you to have this kind of response. Those scheduled tasks and those pre-trained skills are where things really get unlocked. Now, while we have the thing up, just while we're looking at it, if you've never used Claude before, here are the food groups. To get it to do something, you're clicking new, you're typing in the box, do the thing, whatever. Doesn't matter. You do it there and it will take action. When you're in here, the 3 rooms of the house, co-work is what I recommend that you work in because it's connected to all your software. You could just work in chat if you wanted to for that chatbot in the phone booth, or you can click code. And over here in code, it can write apps, it can build websites, it can diagnose things on your computer. I've done all those things. It's really powerful. But for the majority of us who are business owners that aren't techies, inside here, inside co-work, talking to it, that's where you want to go. The next thing that you want to know about are scheduled tasks. Scheduled tasks, like I say, you create a skill and you tell it what you want it to do when you want it to do it. Then the other thing that they build are artifacts, which is a fancy word for dashboards. I showed you a dashboard over here with my morning board that has all of the stuff that I'm already doing. But imagine the power of a dashboard. Let's say you're a coach and you've got 3 clients. You can create a dashboard that sucks in all the information from your docs, your granola recordings, your Fathom recordings, your email, your calendar, and pull together. Okay, this is my mastermind. In this mastermind right here, I want to email my 4 members. What were the action steps that they had? What are my recent emails back and forth? What's the call history? Everything in one place. So if you are bouncing between a bunch of screens to know what your business looks like, a dashboard like this can be a significant improvement in your ability to stay on top of things. So we talked about how to drive it. We talked about how to get it to do work the same way every time by building a skill. We talk about how to schedule those skills so you can get that repetitive work one after the other. And then we talked about those live artifacts, which are your ability to visualize literally anything. I've got live artifacts that have profit and loss statements for events. I've built miniature CRMs to keep me on top of different sales initiatives, sales goals for the sales team, coaching programs, whatever it might be. So it can get really powerful really fast. Here are 5 things that you can do right away. And then we'll take your questions and comments if you've got any, because I want to make sure that we reserve the time. I find that when people start getting curious about their particular business, it takes one, oh, I never thought of it that way, and you're off and running. So here are 5 things you can do straight away to get your Claude up and running. First of all, this isn't one of the 5. We talked about downloading Claude, getting into co-work. So you download the desktop app, you log in, you click into co-work. Always work in co-work. That's what I recommend. So the first thing is you got to connect your software. As soon as you get into co-work, you'll click your name, you'll click settings, you'll click connectors, you'll click add. And then when you browse your connectors, you load up everything that you use. At least that's what I recommend. The second thing that I recommend you do is you build that business profile doc. Now, if you want to call it Business OS, You want to call it whatever you want, but you want to build its intelligence about what you do. How would you do that? Don't overthink it. Tell Claude what the outcome is. It used to be we had to be geniuses of prompting. There were people that said they were prompt engineers and how important it was to tell it exactly what you needed. It's really not the case anymore. You can go into Claude and start with the transformation. I want to teach you everything you can learn about my business so you can make better decisions on my behalf. Now, I want you to connect to this and this and this, and I want you to read all my docs, and I want you to read all my email, and I want you to come up with everything you can think of that you want it to do. But you start with that transformation, and you ask it to build its intelligence about your business, and then you use the magic words, open the skill creator skill, and make this a skill. That's the second thing you should do. Third thing you should do, once it knows everything about your business, this is where it gets so good. Once it knows everything about your business, then you can start asking it for perspective. Hey, scan my email. What are some of the common questions or similar things clients are asking me that I'm really not capitalizing on? What's something that I'm not selling that I could be? Where are my clients repeatedly getting stuck? Where are my employees frustrating? Where are my employees frustrated? And how could I make their lives better today for under $1,000? Whatever. Like there is no dumb question because there's an unlimited bandwidth of intelligence in front of you. Get curious and ask it what it sees. Its perspective is spooky. It's so good. It's discovered things about my business that I missed. It's helped me structure new things. It's helped me start new business lines. It could be really powerful for you. The fourth thing you could and should do, ask it to ask you questions. Hey, Claude, I need to write a blog. Or, hey, Claude, I need some ideas for my social media. Can we do a round of questions that you ask me one at a time about my business? That way, it will ask you a question and you answer it. Ask and answer, ask and answer. And if you do that for 15 or 20 minutes, it's going to come up with a ton of content that you can extract and have it write blogs for you or help you with social media. The moral of that story is you're carrying around so much unique knowledge that you're not extracting, and Claude can answer those things for you. So to Dylan's point when we started, here's a business that relies too much on an owner. You could go to Claude and say, Claude, the mission is here to replace myself. I'm spinning off the business in the next 24 months. I want you to analyze everything that I'm doing and let's build a plan to get me out of this, out of this, out of this, out of this. And it can work with you to do those things. The fifth thing you should do, I've said it 3 times, I'm going to say it a fourth. Use the skill builder skill. It's the magic words of Claude. Don't forget it. When it does something right, you ever want it to do it again, use the skill builder skill is like the magic spell. And then one more is a bonus. It's a bonus. 6, ask it to do a SWOT analysis of your business and your industry. Tell it what you do, tell it who your competitors are, and then tell it to go deep. Find out everything about you, everything about your business competitors, everything about the marketplace, how you make your money, everything. And the power tip on this is when you log into Claude, there are a bunch of different models. When you open a task, there are different models. And if you know about AI, you know about models, but just to make sure everybody knows about them, imagine that these different models are gears in a car. That Haiku is first gear. Fable, that's fourth gear. It's really cooking. This is how much judgment and intelligence it's using on the query. So if you click it to Fable, it's going to use everything it's got for deep dive analysis and idea generation and problem solving. And Fable will eat up your credits in Claude a lot. However, it will come back with answers that will make you go, and I've even got a sticker of it, WTF Claude. Like it will absolutely blow your mind when Fable is cooking on stuff for your business. So ask it for a SWOT analysis to come up with something about your business. So here's the thing. My job is to train business owners on how to get the most out of Claude so you can discover how to get the most out of your business. And thanks to Baton, I've been able to offer a 30-minute one-on-one to anybody that has questions. So if you had questions and you didn't put them in the QR or the Q&A rather, no problem. Let's do a one-on-one, no cost. I'll answer your questions. You can show me your Claude and we'll get off and running. But scan the QR code, or you can, we're going to share the link after the call as well. So scan the QR code if you want to continue the conversation, and I'll show you everything that I've learned. This thing is saving me 21 hours a week right now, and I feel like I'm just getting started. So if you want to learn more, I would love to help you. And Dylan, I'll turn it back over to you for Q&A.
I got a ton of questions, some in the chat and some just for me. There might be a lot of folks on this call. So you have a internet personality, right? And you have recordings of you talking. There are a lot of emails that you've sent. There's long form content you've done, short form
Sure.
content. There are probably some folks here that don't have that much um, content in the bank. How do they get started? What's your advice to those folks who are like, I could give it all my emails and all my docs, but I spend most of my time in the field talking to customers.
Yeah, you have more than you think. If you're recording your meetings, that's a fast way that you can get a lot of yourself on tape. Because if this was just a call with me and Dylan getting to know one another, we would each talk for 20 minutes in a 45-minute call. That 20
I might
minutes,
talk for 30. Oh.
well, that's true. I might nod and smile, but that's all good. But yeah, if you're running a Fathom, if you're running a Granola or one of those meeting recorders, that's a quick win. Blogs are another place to do it. Your outbound email, you can have it say, look at my sent mail, because everyone's sending email back and forth. That's another gold mine of content. Any place you can get a transcription of you expressing yourself is good enough to start that conversation.
That's awesome. The other thing I've seen work well, and I think you alluded to this before, is have Claude ask you questions, right?
Totally.
Say, hey, this is my business. What questions do you have for me to learn more about me so you can support? Um, and then you can just talk to Claude too. You don't even need to type because there's a cool microphone function that I've loved.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Inside here, there is audio dictation where you can talk to Claude. So you can go in here, you click the microphone, and you say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you because you're the best." Okay, great. There it is. But I don't even use that. I use Whisper Flow. You hold down one button and you start narrating, and you can transcribe whatever you're saying into whatever box you want on your computer, whether it's this box or your email or docs or wherever. And the reason why I like to use that is because I can talk to type, but it doesn't stay a conversation. Plus, as you can tell, I like to talk, and I can talk significantly faster than I can type. The name of the game of great prompting for Claude, I think, is, oh, and another thing. Oh, and I really wanted to do this. And I want you to get emotional and think out loud and run on. Like a prompt can be hundreds of words if you want it to be. Let Claude figure it out. So don't stop short with tiny little prompts. Use Whisper Flow, use its microphone button. It's a total game changer.
That's awesome. I'm also a big fan of voice. It's an interesting unintended consequence of AI. Um, Another question, Pat. You're doing so much with Claude Cowork. What doesn't it work for?
Hmm. What doesn't it work for? I will tell you one thing that I stumble on when I use it, and that's when it is upgrading. They roll out a new model and it will all of a sudden forget how to do things every once in a while. And it takes a couple of days for it to get back on track. It threw me a curveball a couple of weeks ago when all of a sudden it could be a desktop or a cloud-based task. And it like completely forgot where things were located. The other thing that happens is when I'm really cooking with it for a week and I run out of my credits. Man, I spent an extra $150 last week because I was using Fable too much and I ran out of my credits, but I couldn't stop working. So I had a $150 surprise bill on top of it. So those are some growing pains of learning how to use it. The other thing that it doesn't do that I wish it would do, but it's not a Claude problem, it's actually a LinkedIn problem. LinkedIn is my main social platform, but LinkedIn is like extremely possessive about letting AIs touch it. So it really can't do much. Like it can't post on my LinkedIn. It can't really scrape my LinkedIn. I mean, I'm sure it could, but the rumor is that LinkedIn's going to ban your account if they catch you doing it. So I just don't even bother because it's so important to me. So those are a few things it doesn't do well. The other thing it doesn't do well, it used to be a pain point, but they solved it. The first pain point was it couldn't create graphics that were worth a darn, but it solved it because it released Claude Design. And I'm not sure if this is the right screen that I'm sharing, but Claude Design, yes, I am. So Claude Design is a whole design system that will help you create flyers and websites from scratch. Like this is the website of my AI training. And I did it all inside Claude. I just told it, I need a website for this. And because it knew everything what I was doing, it built it. And then it gave me the HTML and I pasted it into my Go High Level, which is the CRM that hosts my website. But while it's good at that, what it's not good at is video editing. Like it will work with Descript, okay, and it will help post my things, but it will not like do video creation and editing inside Claude as much as I would like.
Very interesting. I'm sure they'll solve the video editing component of it
In a
soon.
minute. I totally
It
agree with that.
one of the big unlocks for me and for the Baton team is we have this belief here that nearly anything you can do on a computer, AI can do for you. And
Yep.
I think that's an interesting framework because Pat, one of the impactful things that you said early on is that the moment when this all becomes really powerful is when you start getting curious about what it can do. And if you go in with that belief that, hey, I think the AI can do anything that I'm doing on a computer, then likely you'll build some pretty cool stuff.
That's a great point, and you're 100% right. And the second layer of that is not only is it connected to everything that I'm doing so it can do stuff on my computer, what if my pieces of software could talk to one another? That's when it gets really cool. The context that's buried inside your granola notes, which is your transcription, and the documents in your drive, there's a space between those things. What am I telling clients that I'm not writing? Or what is in my live show that isn't in my marketing? The context and the silent observer that Claude can be on your business can really unlock some cool stuff. And it can start doing things that a senior employee would do for you. And you can really start generating value.
Well said. There's one more question here. Do the scheduled tasks require your laptop slash machine to be on to run?
Great question. It used to be that way, where scheduled tasks had to be run on a local, or your machine had to be unlocked. Now, when you create a task, I'd like you to do a task. Up here in the top corner, there's this little computer monitor, or you can run it in the cloud. And if you run it in the cloud, it can run even if your Claude is closed or your computer is off. The only caveat to that is uh, it will, yeah, I know this. Um, the only caveat to that is if your files are locally on your desktop, the cloud files won't be able to read it. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there and some growing pains about doing it. But it is possible to schedule your tasks or run tasks in the cloud. And you can get Claude mobile app and run co-work off of your app now too, which is something it didn't get to do before.
This was awesome, Pat. I think we're through all of the questions. I'll maybe hold for just another 30 seconds, Pat, if you have any closing words, and we'll see if any other questions come in.
Yeah, my closing words are you have the courage to build a dream. You're building a business. You could go work for someone else, but you chose not to do that. And to make the dream come true, we got to make more money than we spend. And a way that we can bend time and labor infinitely with an employee that knows way more than we do, and all we have to do is train it about our business and get out of the way, it's the biggest innovation since the internet and maybe more. It is our responsibility to learn how to drive these pieces of software to instantly add value to the business revenue to the business, but the biggest takeaway, it's going to lower the amount of work you have to do every day. When you get it cooking, doing 20 hours a week of work like it's doing for me, you have a choice. You can either build more stuff or you can take some of the time profit off the table as well. You know what? I don't have to work Fridays. You know what? I don't have to do that report every week because it's already done. So my goal is to empower you to get more resources on your side of the ledger so you can make more money, have more time in your bank, and ultimately lead a better small business lifestyle. That's what this is all about.
Beautiful, Pat. One
Thank you.
final question that popped in the chat is it expensive? But maybe you could just talk about the costs.
Such a great question. And Sharon, I'm sorry I didn't address this earlier. You can buy a little bit, some of it, or a lot of it. And the way that they do it is you get this many credits, they call them tokens, this many tokens a week, and this many tokens a month. And the beginner plan is 20 bucks a month. You really can't do much on that. I recommend business owners that want to get serious at least come in at the $100 a month plan. I'm cooking at the $200 a month plan, which is the biggest personal plan you can be on. And someone might say, $200 for a piece of software? No, this is not software. This is labor. This is your personnel budget. If you think about this as a piece of software, yeah, 200 bucks a month is a lot. But if you think of it as a junior employee, 200 bucks a month is a gift. So that's how much it costs. You can run over if you're not judicious about which model you use, but I love it. And it's a drop in the bucket for the productivity you get back.
That's right. I think it is well worth the $200 a month. Um, and also it's important, I think, to start considering these things as it relates to how do I improve the value of my company, right? So if you're starting to think about selling, which maybe you are because I assume a lot of you are on the Baton mailing list, it's worth it to start engaging with these pieces of software to really think about how do you map out your business so you're handing over something that can kind of be plug and play for that new owner.
And I'll jump in on that real quick. If I were advising, like let's say I was a part of the Baton team. Wow, Dylan, it's great to work with you. Okay, you're a person that's thinking about selling your business. What I would do is I would go into Claude and I would say, I want you to build a personality that is an inquisitive buyer that asks a ton of tough questions. They can put me through the ringer of everything they would want to know before they give me a big fat check. I want to know the priorities they're going to be looking at, the places I can improve, the questions that they would have. Uh, make sure that you're very clear on what they would want and build me an action plan to fix those things. And then make this a scheduled task every week. I want you to evaluate the business and how we're doing against that plan to make sure that you're getting steps closer to answering all the questions that a buyer or the team at Baton would ask you. Just like going to the gym, you start doing that every week, you're going to be ready way faster to make a bunch of money when you sell the business.
Awesome. There was one more question Sharon asked if
Mhm.
Claude does social media posts.
Yeah, you can, once you teach it about the business, you can have it help you with social media posts. I have it connected to my Go High Level CRM, and my Go High Level CRM will actually allow it to schedule posts. So you can tell it, draft the social media posts, and then schedule it inside my CRM for the social networks. So, yes, it can. And it's really good at finding things for you to post. I still find that even with Ghostwriter, I kind of review them before they go out, but they're 80% of the way done, even with Ghostwriter, and it lightens the load big time.
It's awesome, Pat. Yeah, it's interesting on the writing piece. I do think it's still valuable to have a human touch on those. And we're pretty heavily AI native here. But I think part of AI fluency is knowing when not to use AI or knowing when to edit.
Yeah.
And I think talking and writing is still one of those places. Um, okay, those are all the questions. We'll give everyone 5 minutes back, but thank you all so much for just taking the time. You're all small business owners, so Pat and I both know how busy you are, so it just means a lot that we had a really big showing of folks who took the time. And we'll send everything over email, including Pat's QR code, all the information to get support from Baton, and hope to continue the relationship with each and every one of you. Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Talk soon.